Hello, everyone. How are you? Welcome back to another tip and tool, something that is tactical and real that you can put in place as you're moving through perimenopause, menopause, and beyond. I am Jenn Pike, medical exercise specialist and functional medicine diagnostic nutritionist. I specialize in women's health and hormones, movement, and all the bits and pieces that really contribute to who we are as women and how we navigate so many of the changes that are happening in our bodies as we are moving through that transition of perimenopause into menopause and beyond. And so if you've joined me previously, you've listened to any of my videos before where I have chatted with you about the different signs and symptoms and everything that can go on in your body. What I want to tell you is I hope you've realized that it actually does not have to suck. It frustrates me so much when I look out into the world, and that is the core message that I hear, is that it's awful being a woman and it's awful as you age, and all of the isms that come with that. And this whole idea that we are meant to stay tiny or strive to be tiny, when in fact this is the time of our life to get strong and to feel powerful and to really feel connected to our bodies and so much more. So in today's episode, we're going to be talking about workout tips for training with your cycle in perimenopause. Now that can feel challenging because you in perimenopause are most likely starting to have some cycle changes happening. Could be a shorter cycle, meaning you used to get your period once every 29 to 30 days. Now it's coming every 25 to 26 days. You used to really felt like you understood the 4 phases of your cycle, when you were on your period, when that stopped and you were in your follicular phase, when you were ovulating, and then in your luteal phase. Now you're like, I have no idea what phase I'm in because one month it's like this, another month it's like that. My emotions are all over the place. My energy is all over the place. And for those of you women who you've been exercising probably for as long as you can remember, this is like part of who you are and what you do. This can be so frustrating because the same stamina you used to have, the same ability to just like the engine inside to keep going and to drive and push and get the most out of your workouts, it may not be feeling like that's available to you anymore. And there may be some of you where you're like, you know what, I've never had to work out. I've been thin, I have felt healthy, I've never really had to work out. And now metabolically, there's a lot of things changing and shifting in your body, and you want to start to embrace the exercise, but you're feeling confused with what to listen to that's out there. So the first thing I just want to say is that we are not men, okay? That is obvious in our bodies as we're menstruating or going through all these different physiological changes hormonally. But what is hard to understand sometimes is the female specific training that we need to embrace that is unique to our bodies, to our own physiology, to our own biology, and honestly, to our own psychology. Because while there is physiological difference, like the fact that as women, we have different muscle fiber types than men, that we have a different fatigability, meaning that we actually fatigue at a different rate in a very different way the majority of men do. And you'll notice in different types of workouts. So I've been moving my whole life. I have owned in-person studios. I have an online studio now. I'm still teaching. My husband has been an athlete and worked out for his whole life. We can do the exact same workout, and my body's response and what fatigues me versus his is completely different. I have an engine that can keep going when it is a moderate intensity. I can do like leg lifts until the cows come home. My husband will cripple after 3 of them because that's just not how his body works. But he can do clean and press and clean and jerks and all these power-based CrossFit movements, and he feels incredible. Not me. And so again, we're all individuals, but there are different intrinsic reasons as to why one type of a workout may support us and another not. The mental side of things is you may be an inner athlete on the inside. You may be somebody that, you were an athlete growing up. You love competitive sports. You love competing against yourself. You love a leaderboard. And so that's always what your drive is and what you're moving towards. You also may be somebody that is really accountability connected, meaning if you don't, close all the circles on your Apple Watch, you haven't done enough. If you haven't hit your 10 or 12,000 steps a day, you haven't done enough. And so there's this mental part that plays on you. But there's also these distinct patterns in our bodies as women that we need to understand. Our injuries, where they show up in our body and where we're susceptible, different than a lot of men. Women are going to be more prone to hip and pelvic issues going on, and that can be to weak or tight pelvic floor muscles, but it can also be to a lot of instability in around the hip joint, in around the glutes. The knees can often be an issue. When we talk about the low back, hips and pelvis, SI joint issues, sacral issues, a lot of piriformis issues, in English, achy lower back, deep gluteal pain, lateral knee pain, feet feeling not very supported, ankles that are pretty wobbly. I can't tell you how many women I know who come to my classes and are like, I've lost count how many times I've rolled my ankle. We also have very different neuromuscular adaptations that set us apart. And our hormones influence this massively. Men have the same 24-hour rhythm in their body. So there really is like a rinse and repeat cycle that is happening in their system when we look at key hormones that are being produced and that are being utilized. In our bodies, we have these ranges that are going on. So if you're a cycling woman that still has regular menstrual cycle, so I'm 45, I'm in perimenopause, but I still get a regular cycle every month, every 25 to 26 days. I also am very in tune with my body. I obviously know when I'm on my period and I'm bleeding. I know what that follicular energy feels like. I can feel when my body is ovulating, and I understand what that luteal range is before I come into my period. But if you're kind of all over the place, what you don't recognize is that there are a lot of highs and lows happening behind the scenes. Estrogen peaking, progesterone non-existent. Testosterone peaking, periods of time when testosterone's not there and not present. And so when all of this is happening behind the scenes and your hormones are shifting, which are chemicals, they're chemical messengers that impact your emotions, that impact your energy, that impact your cognition and your brain sharpness, your ability to actually like stay focused and engaged. Maybe even listening to this video right now, you are already finding yourself wandering. You have your phone in your hand, you're thinking about something else. Come back right here and stay focused into it. But this is the real deal for us. So when we're hearing things like, a lot of male influencers or male personal trainers, could even be male physicians online say, if I hear another woman come online and say, we're not tiny men, that is actually true. There's nothing that is the same in our bodies from that perspective in terms of training principles that is the same of a man. Now, how we grow muscle is how we grow muscle. So when we're talking about things like, we want to build healthy, strong shoulders and back and glutes, the same constraints we would apply to the muscle are very similar man versus woman, right? Depending on what it is that your goals are. But the way in which that we want to actually build our body, when you talk to most women, they're not saying like, I just want to bench all the time. Like I want to develop really strong pecs. No, most women are saying that they want to have, developed glutes. They want to have developed shoulders. They want to focus on their abs. They want like what's referred to as building an X frame on their body where they have that symmetry, kind of that hourglass shape. And so when we know about building muscle and we know how we do this, meaning we manipulate the time under tension, we adjust the volume, the load, and the intensity that we are lifting and training for. We work our muscles appropriately to failure in working sets, and we combine compound and isometric exercises. We bring in things like dumbbells, kettlebells, our own body weight, resistance, cables, barbells, machines, all of the variety. Where I see a lot of women make the mistake, especially as they get older, is they downplay the strength they actually have. So they stay lifting 5, 10s, maybe 15 pounds. They're not pushing and pulling the kind of weight that they actually have the ability to. And that can be because they're afraid of hurting themselves. More often, it's that they're afraid they're going to bulk up. I wish it was just as easy as lifting heavy weights to be able to see that bulk and that definition. That's going to be a combination of your lifestyle, the way that you are eating and how you're nourishing your body, the level of recovery you get, if you're drinking alcohol, if you have a lot of processed foods or not in your life, your level of stress, and so much more. You going and lifting the weights is not going to be something that's going to make you look or feel bulky in your body. So that's really important to know and understand. And all these little nuances is why program design is key. So for women, if we want to develop these strong hourglass figures as we're moving into our 40s and our 50s and beyond, heck, I wanted to do this when I was in my 30s. You've got to think about the primary emphasis here. So we want to build strong glutes and we want to build strong shoulders and back. That's what's going to help to create that illusion of having that hourglass figure, right? When we're thinking about this in accordance to, well, how do I go and train these areas of my body in relation to where I'm at in my cycle? This is where we start to get a little bit more specific, and this is where I'm going to go in this little mini teaching. Before I do though, 2 things. Number 1, make sure you hit subscribe so you do not miss any episodes. Number 2, click this link down below here to learn about some of the different programs and offers that my team and I have, and if we can help you in your strength training and your body composition goals, and doing this in a way that is directly connected back to your individual body and the phases that you are going through to help you line up your goals to achieve that. Now, if we come back to think about some of these different differences in our body, we have different concentrations in muscle fiber type in our body. We have that different ability in terms of when we fatigue. Our recovery is different as well too. And then when we add in the layer of all these fluctuating hormones, we really need to think about how we are programming the way that we are training. So the first thing is dial in where your energy is at. So if you know that you have this regular rhythm of each phase, in your follicular phase, which is the week after your period ends. So your period is done. Now you're entering your follicular phase. We have estrogen starting to come back, increasing. Testosterone is going to start to increase as well too. Energy is coming back. Body is going to feel stronger. Energy reserves are back online. Your brain is back online. Your appetite has probably re-regulated itself. Blood sugar is going to be more stable in this phase, and this would be that time to go in and to be able to lift a little heavier. You want to choose your most difficult technical lifts early in your workouts when you're moving into that phase where you're training heavier. So this would be things like squats, deadlifts. If you're doing barbell hip thrust versus like a body weight hip thrust, Bulgarian split squats, things where you're really going to have to technically think about it in terms of mentally positioning yourself and then the execution of that form under whatever load that is. And you would choose to do these typically multi-joint exercises first, and then you would progress to isometric. So what that means is you're not going to fatigue your body and do a whole bunch of leg lifts first and a whole bunch of inner and outer thigh machine work and a whole bunch of single leg body weight hip thrust. You're going to go and do some range of motion and mobility first. Then you're going to go and do the actual load. So the leg press, the squat, the deadlift, the barbell hip thrust, Smith hip thrust, whatever it may be. You're going to do those things and load. Then you'd layer things in if you were going to add them, like your leg extension, your leg curl, and then you would finish off. And oftentimes these are referred to as finishers with your abduction, either using cable or bands, your adduction, doing the little bum burnouts, those little final finisher rounds. That's how you would structure that. When you're thinking about going to failure, we know in research and literature that building muscle can happen anywhere between a 5 to 30 rep range. So if you are thinking about lifting heavy, this is going to be all relevant to what is heavy to you. So to me, doing something like a goblet squat, 50 pounds might be heavy to me if I'm trying to bang out 10 or 12 reps. But 15 pounds might be heavy to you in the beginning, 25 pounds. How do you know for you? It's not just a numbers game. It is a feeling. It's your own exertion. So for me, I know that I have chosen an appropriate heavy load where, let's say my rep range is 12. And by 6 or 7, I am already having to negotiate with myself. I am like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do 12. Maybe I'll just go to 8. And I'm like, no, Jen, focus and dial in. And then I'm pushing through those next couple. I may be pausing at rep 9 and being like, you got this. Let's try and crank out 2 to 3 more to get to that 11 or 12 rep range. And I am so dialed in and connected to my body, pushing through my feet, recruiting through my hamstrings, my adductors, and my glutes, making sure I get that proper pause at the top, controlling on the way down. And before I know it, guess what? My strong, powerful 2 failure 12 reps are now complete. That is the modality when we are moving through our follicular phase and coming into ovulation. The first half of your cycle, it's going strong, it's slowing things down, and it is really building that inner strength and power that's going to help to build your muscles. Now, if we're coming into the luteal phase, that 10 to 14 day range before your next period is going to start, well, now estrogen has taken a little dip because hopefully we have ovulated and we have progesterone that has started to increase. If you're a woman where you're not ovulating anymore and your hormones are sitting relatively low, right? Estrogen, testosterone, and progesterone, you just have to pay attention to how you feel energetically. So if you constantly describe yourself as being burned out and overwhelmed and stressed, and you hear yourself saying things like, my adrenals are fried and all of that, does it logically make sense for you to do workouts where you feel like you're going to go crush the workout and you're going to go lift the heaviest and you're going to push through HIIT and you're going to do something power-based? No. So you're going to apply more of a luteal energy impact to that. You're going to do a little bit lighter weight and you're going to go for slightly higher repetitions. So maybe you're doing 12, 15, 20, up in that 30 range. And if you normally would do that with 15 pounds for 12, maybe now you're lifting 8s or 10s. imbalance. You're still creating that consistent tension. Oftentimes people say time under tension in the muscle, but it's not going to have the same type of load on your CNS, on your nervous system. It's not going to tax you in the same way. It's going to challenge you, but it's not going to tax you in the same way. So it's starting to understand the differences of how we can apply a different, intensity load, the tempo, right? Slowing things down, that intensifies it. If we're adding in more reps or sets than we normally do, that intensifies it. If we want to decrease the intensity, don't do 4 or 5 sets, do 2 or 3 sets. Don't do 20 or 25 repetitions, do 12 to 15. So you play around with some of those reps, okay? You play around with some of these modalities. And then when you're coming into your actual bleed week, or you're coming into when you're just like, maybe it's this time of year, I'm recording this coming into the holidays. I don't know at what point in your life you'll listen to this. Majority of women I'm talking to are like, I have got so many little things that need to be done. I feel like I don't have time for the big things in my life, which is moving my body. I just don't have the energetic capacity. And if that is you, then dial it back. Do yoga, do Pilates, do barre, get out for a walk. Stop worrying about the circles closing on your stinking Apple Watch and focus on nourishing and nurturing yourself. So for me, when I'm coming into that period of time where I'm on my bleed, my first few days, this is about complete nourishment. I am like pulling back and creating a nest for my body. I am in nature walking outside. I am doing yoga. I am doing things that just feel so good and not taxing to my body. And then maybe by day 3 or day 4 of that bleed week on your period, you're like, okay, I can come back to it. Ladies who don't have a period, day 3 or day 4 of like really nourishing and nurturing yourself in this way, you're like, you know what? I'm going to actually go and I'm going to pick up the weights today and I'm going to do a full body workout. But this is how you have to learn how to titrate it. And honestly, this is when working with somebody who understands this, who has a level of expertise, not just in program design, but who also understands your unique physiological needs as a woman, I would highly recommend. So if you've enjoyed these tips and this bit of information here, as I said, make sure to subscribe, but also click down here because I have continuing education for you and I have programs and ways that you can work with myself as your lead instructor and my team as well. Thanks so much for being here today, and we'll see you back here next time.